This week on Wild Talk, it's part 2 of Know Before You Go. I sit down with Marvin from the Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance to talk about what you need to know before your next goat hunt. There's real world consequences if hunters aren't selective when it comes to their harvest, right? What could come down the pipe? We've seen it with other species.
I mean, we have it in BC. We're really fortunate here. You know, you go to the lower 48. I mean, you're not getting there's no over-the-counter tags. It's a once-in-a-lifetime draw. And I think that's something that I took for granted for a lot of years. And I harvested young animals. I've harvested a couple nannies. I had so many goats in my backyard for years. You take it for granted. And I think that's something we can't take for granted anymore. The populations are going down. The Goat Alliance, we're trying to gather data from all jurisdictions to kind of get where's the latest counts.
Then fuel your next backcountry adventure with Grind Foods. This is my favorite, the maple Saskatoon berry.
Yeah.
This one is just so tasty. And I said to my wife and daughter, you got to try these. And they tried the energy waffles and went, they're okay. They tried these and they went, you got to get more. You got to get more. Later, I dive into wetlands, waterfowl, and conservation with Ducks Unlimited. Get ready. It's wild out there. I'm your host, Steve Hamilton, and you are watching Wild Talk. This episode of Wild Talk is brought to you by Hornady. Accurate, deadly, dependable. Bronc Beer. Great fucking beer. Umarex Air Guns. Hunt with air. And these fine sponsors. All right, everybody, it's that time of year when the hardcore hunters that are just dying for the mountains are prepping. They've been thinking about it all year and they're about to start climbing up. So we're going to take some time here today on this episode of Wild Talk to talk about mountain goats in particular. We're going to dive into a lot of cool things, give you some tips and tricks, but most importantly, a lot of education around this iconic species, why it's so important to select the right animal and how you do it. So I've got a friend of the show on once again to join me. I'd call him an expert in the field. And on the mountaintop, we got Marvin from the Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance join me once again. Huge thanks, Marvin.
Yeah, Steve, great to be on here. It's not our first time and hopefully not our last, and definitely getting prepped for the season here. Been out for a few months, well, quite a few months already training and thinking about the season. Got quite a few trips planned, and the first one will be actually not a goat hunt, but a sheep hunt. That kind of is my first training for goat hunting is the sheep hunt, and pretty pumped about that hunt. With my son, our first actually stone sheep hunt together. I've been on a lot of stone hunts, but will be my first with my son because it's hard to meet up. He's guiding and I'm getting older and he's getting smarter and we just hard to connect. So pretty pumped about that. And then it's going to be full on goats for the fall.
That's one thing. I've known you for a while now. You never stop training for goat hunting. You can't.
And the older you get, once you stop, you might seize up. So you got to keep going. And there's the passion. I've been fueled by it for 30 years now, and it hasn't left. And I'm, I've kind of changed on kind of how I hunt. I don't actually hunt a lot. I do get out with others hunting, but myself, I don't do a lot of actual pulling the trigger.
Yep, I feel that. It's all about. I'm at that stage in my, I guess you'd call it, hunting career now, where I'd rather watch somebody else do it and kind of revel in their joy, watch the guys and gals get their first animal. And I love that part about it. But there's something to be said about climbing a mountain though, and strapping the pack on. I've had the pleasure and misery because in the time it sucks. You got 60, 70 pounds on your back and you're like, man, this hurts. But the one thing I found on the couple of fly-ins that I've done is that the minute you're in that plane leaving the lake, you're like, man, can we go back? That 2 weeks of misery, it's worth it.
It's crazy. Yeah. The trip's done and it's like you're already starting on the next
Hmm.
plan in the next one.
Yep.
Even when the wounds haven't healed, you're still
Yeah.
you're thinking about the next one. Where are you going to go? Who you going with?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool addiction.
Yeah. You get the times I've done it. We got back to the float plane lodge, and you're borrowing their shower because you stink. But the minute you're out and you're kind of collected, you're going up to the caretaker there, going, okay, can I get in next year or 2 years from now? What lakes open? What plateaus open? Whatever, and
It's
it's
pretty cool. We live in a great part of the world and a great part of the country where there's
we do.
I could live three lives and still not have been on all the mountains I want to go on. So
We'll be right back with more after the break. And we are back with more wild talk. Let's get into it. I talked a little bit about the importance of selecting the right animal, and goats and sheep are two of the most, I guess you'd call, sensitive to harvest. So let's roll this out by talking about age class. Why is it so important? You see it everywhere. You got to select an older sheep. You got to select an older goat. So we're talking about goats here. So let's talk about why that's important for goats in particular.
yeah, and I kind of just first to start kind of like what does age class mean?
Yeah.
So it broadly, if you read literature, they don't really get into much detail on goats other than there's a kid. They may say a juvenile up to two, and then they say they reach maturity at three, and then they just say a
Right.
mature billy or nanny. I really break it into uh, what I call juvenile would be four and under. Of course, your 1 year old's your kid, but I kind of class them into three different age classes, and that's the four and under. Then the mature would be like the 5 to 10, which are your kind of your prime breeders, and then you get into what I call the old ones, which is they're the old timers, the 11 and 10 or 11 and older billies, and those really are kind of at the twilight of their lives. A lot of goats don't make it to 10 even. A lot of goats don't make it for a lot of reasons because there's a lot of factors and there's a lot of things other than hunters taking and harvesting that are going against goats.
Hmm.
But yeah, sort of break it into those classes, and really you want to focus on the older goats. We're going to get into nannies and kind of the billies and identification, but your prime breeders. Your prime breeders are going to be typically 6 to 8, up to 9, and really once they get over 10, they're not going to be quite as active. But I've seen them 10, 11, even 12-year-olds, but they're probably not going to be the strong breeders. And the younger ones, typically they're not going to be breed until they're closer to 4 or 5. Studies that have been done, there's been a lot of studies over the years. uh, the biggest study in the world, the longest has been Car Ridge in Alberta. We've been part of that, funding that study for years since 1989. So there's been a lot of sort of age dynamics and studies being done on that population in Car Ridge. And they're finding typically you're not getting a lot of activity or billies until they're about 6 years old. And then your nannies, similar, you're going to be 5, 6 year olds when they're starting to produce. And what's really interesting is with your nannies is the older the nannies, the more important they are to the herd. And people may not realize that, and they're thinking, oh, I took an older nanny. Maybe it's a dry nanny.
Hmm.
There are times when it's a dry nanny and maybe it's at the end of its life. So it's not impacting the herd so much. But really, those older nannies, it's really a pecking order with goats, whether it be the nannies or the billies, where the older ones are really controlling and really mentoring the younger ones. So it's really actually important. We'll get into the whole nanny thing in a while here, but really, even the older nannies are important for that herd dynamics and for kind of passing on a lot of the knowledge, and even mating. So you're thinking, oh, it's an older nanny. not a big deal, but it actually will impact that herd dynamic. So
Wow.
that's kind of a key thing that I've learned over the years as well, because I thought, oh, it's an older nanny, it's not
Yeah.
going to be a big deal, but it actually is a fairly important, very important to the
Hmm.
structure of that herd.
Yeah, that's not something I've ever heard before, and chances are, I would like to say some of our listeners and our viewers have never heard that before, because I've always thought that, oh, you can take an old dry sow if you're hunting bear, or an old dry doe, or old dry cow, and that's one of the best ones to take. So that's a neat piece of
It
information there.
and it's even like I said, it may not be the breeding component, but it's actually the kind of like the leader,
Hmm.
and having that kind of uh, matriarchic kind of
Right.
structure. It's yeah, that's something I didn't really know until I got
Oh,
into reading more literature on just how important it is. So that's aside from whole the population dynamics and what taking a nanny out of the group will do potentially to that long-term population. It's good information.
absolutely. Yeah, it's something you wouldn't think of too much. They're a herd animal, right? So yeah, when you talk about the matriarchy, where they're kind of passing down their knowledge and they're essentially teaching the other members of the herd, right? That's kind of cool. So we'll be right back with more after the break. And we are back with more wild talk. We talked a little bit about age class and why that's important, but let's dig into the meat and potatoes of it. Why Billies? Why are they the important ones to harvest?
There's a really good diagram that Alaska Fish and Game has on their website uh, that kind of shows the difference of taking, say, a nanny with a kid, just a nanny, and then taking a billy, and the difference there. So it's over like a 5 year period, and it's just a the numbers aren't exact, but it gives you some indication of the impact. If you're taking out just the nanny and it has a kid, you're basically taking out two goats, because
Right.
that nanny in its first year is not going to survive without its mom for many reasons. So you take that out and say you're starting with a group of, the diagram shows you're starting off with two billies.
Mm-hmm.
There's a nanny and then a nanny with a kid. You take out that nanny and that kid in 5 years, you have made five goats to start. To rebuild that in 5 years, you're going to have seven goats. This
Right.
is just rough numbers. You take out, say, just the nanny, not the nanny with the kid. You're going from five goats. You're increasing the population. You may double it. You might be at 10. If you select just a billy, so you haven't touched any of the nannies, you may go from 5 up to 14. So you may triple that population by only focusing on that male out of that group. Now these numbers are just hypothetical.
Right.
The key is, and I said it at the outset, there's so many other factors that are kind of keep putting the population numbers down, and
Mm-hmm.
probably more than ever nowadays there's been a lot of impact. You hear about the global warming, so that's impacting the vegetation near the alpine, so there's actually less alpine, so there's less feed. That impacts the population. In the last 50 years, 100 years, there's just way more activity, whether it be,
Yes.
especially in the last 20 with ATVs. So you've got
Mm-hmm.
more impact, you've got more people using the alpine, uh, motorized vehicles. Then you've got all the heli skiing, heli logging. There's been enough studies to show how much that impacts populations and what it does. It actually even impacts it, say helicopter activity. Those animals will be moving potentially from terrain. Say it's in the wintertime when there's heli skiing. They're going to be kicked out of their terrain that is generally going to be more protective for them into less desirable goat terrain.
Right.
So they may end up more in avalanche areas. The feed isn't as good, but it actually is shown to impact their reproductive rates. Just the ongoing disturbances impacts them with their reproduction, which is interesting, and people
Hmm.
wouldn't even think of that. But it's the stress to the body that actually has a negative impact to their
Right.
reproductive system. So then you've got predation. We all know about grizzly bears and wolves and cougars and golden eagles.
Hmm.
And it all depends. There's just debates and discussions on how much that impacts, but I've seen it myself. I had an experience last year in a population that was healthy, just 3, 4 years ago, and there wasn't a single goat.
Wow.
And we was up there for a full week. Looks like predation from what we've seen. I talked to a guide outfitter that was up there 2 years previous, and all they saw was scat from wolves, not a single goat. They thought the goats were maybe in the timber because it was hot. So I was led to believe there's lots of goats up there. And I looked, there wasn't a single scat pile from goats. There was no hair. There was no beds. There was nothing. And I'd been chasing goats for a lot of years, and I was like, this is void of goats.
Hmm.
So that's my first time I've ever seen that. I've hunted the coast for years, and I would have said there's pretty much goats on every range. And I was pretty
Right.
confident telling people that you can go on any mountain on the coast
Hmm.
within reason around the heavy, dense population areas, Smithers Terrace, and
Right.
you'll find goats. That's not the case anymore. That was pretty shocking. So there's all these other factors that are avalanches, of course, probably one of the most prolific killers of goats is avalanches. So there's all those other factors. So we need to do what we need to do as far as hunters and being responsible to really stay away from those nannies,
Yeah.
because that's just another thing that's going to kick their numbers down. And
Yeah.
they don't reproduce like other ungulates or animals may. You might think, oh, they're going to produce every year. They're going to have an offspring. That's not the case. They don't typically produce their first one till they're 5 years old, 4.75 years of
Hmm.
age. So, and then it's not every year, it's every 2 years, or it may be every three
Right.
years.
Right.
So it's low reproduction rates. They're not having that's 2% of the time they're having twins. So
That's
that's pretty
it.
low as well. A lot of other animals are having,
Hmm.
twins on a more regular basis. Not the case with goats. There might be the odd triplet. Haven't seen them, but I've seen some photos. It's, people have seen triplets, but there's just not the and that's the thing with the goats. It's just not a high reproduction.
Yeah. So there's a lot of predation, slow reproduction, low fecundity type thing. So we got to do our part as hunters and conservationists if we want to see survival of the species and keeping those seasons open. So we're going to continue this conversation with Marvin from the Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance when we come right back with these messages.
Stream past episodes of Wild Talk at wildtvplus.ca.
The sun is out. It's beautiful here in Prince George. We've been wanting to set this up for a little while now. Weather wasn't cooperating, but we finally get to do an on-site Tools of the Trade segment, and I'm stoked for this. So today I'm joined by Brendan from Grind Food Inc. Huge thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
I got a chance to try the energy waffles, for lack of a better term, a few months ago. A mutual friend of ours, I won't say who it is, reached out and said, hey, did you ever tried these? And I went, no, I hadn't had a chance, but I'd used a lot of the stuff in the industry before, and I got a chance to try these, and wow, they are lights out amazing. So before we dig too deep into that, because I'm excited to talk about that, tell me a little bit about Grind Food Inc. and what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were a Canadian-owned company, and we were owned by a guy named Max Young. He created our endurance butter formula, which is our kind of high-calorie option. It's popular in hiking and running too, but he formulated that all on his own. He owned a peanut butter factory where he made his own peanuts, roasted his own peanuts, and he came up with this fantastic recipe. And I came on a few years after that, after he kind of wanted to get out during COVID and everything. He got a little hectic there, as everybody did, and I came in straight out of high school with a deep passion for fitness and health foods in general, and we kind of took it from there. And then from there came our energy waffles because of my business partner. His name's Clay Gillis. He's
Right.
been in the industry for 25 years doing exactly what I'm doing now. So that was kind of exciting. And we formulated some new great Canadian maple syrup recipes. And
Oh, they're delicious. As I said, I had a chance to try them, and I've tried a bunch of these over the years. And when I first met up with you and got a chance to try one of the samples, I think I texted you within an hour and said I need some boxes of these. They were so good.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is these energy waffles. What are your main flavors on them? What sort of calories is somebody packing in?
Yeah, so each one of our waffles is about 140 calories, 20 grams of carbs, and 10 grams of organic sugar. And sugar always scares people a little bit, but I promise sugar's good for you. You need it when you're exerting a lot of energy. But we've got our maple sea salt, maple Saskatoon berry, and maple chocolate strawberry, all of which are Quebec maple syrup. Everything's organic. They're fantastic. And
they're so good. What's your favorite flavor?
My favorite flavor is the chocolate strawberry. A very popular one is the maple sea salt. People can't get enough of that one.
That was the first one I cracked open,
Yeah.
and I said to my wife and daughter, you got to try these. And they tried the energy waffles and went, they're okay. They tried these and they went, you got to get more. You got to get more. So that's what was key to me. One is Canadian made. It's Canadian owned. It's Canadian operated. Canadian ingredients, and they're tasty. That is such an important thing in this day and age when you're living in the backcountry out of a backpack for 2-3 weeks at a time. The other cool thing you guys got is the energy peanut butter. Talk about that a bit.
That's a super unique product. I absolutely love that product. It's a peanut butter product, so it's peanuts, chocolate, honey, MCT oil, vanilla, salt. So everything in there is natural. That one's not quite organic, but it's the best ingredients we can possibly source. And it packs in 700 calories and 125 grams. So you get a backpack on, it just sits in the side pocket. It's absolutely unmatched. Like that, you'll never find anything quite like that.
What do they say? Let's skip to the good part. This is what everybody's been waiting for, to actually see these things. And just reading this one, the endurance butter here, peanut butter and chocolate, 47 carbs, 700 calories, 16 grams of protein in a 125 gram package.
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's something that nobody else has quite been able to capture. There's a couple other brands out there who have tried, but they are typically packed with oils and very thin and honestly not that tasty.
Yeah, they mess up your stomach when you're in the backcountry.
Yeah,
That's the last thing you need back there too.
Exactly, and these digest fantastic. We really pride ourselves in what goes into our products. That's number one, which is why, like, just full transparency, these don't do well in the winter. In the summertime, they're fantastic, but that's simply because we don't add processed stuff to it. It's all organic ingredients. So.
That's right, like 4 servings per pouch at 180 calories per, and that's just the peanut butter.
Yeah.
And this is my favorite, the maple Saskatoon berry.
Yeah.
This one is just so tasty, and 12 energy waffles in here, 140 calories, 31 grams. Like, just love these things. Made in Canada, certified organic, all of the key markers that a lot of these people want. And I've said it before in this, the taste is what's key to me. They're so good.
Absolutely.
So if somebody wants to find these, where can they find them?
Best place right now is grind.ca. We have a good bundle up right now which has both of these together for a really wicked price. One of the best prices we'll have on that. And we are in a couple of outdoor retailers. We are in Mech. They sell a lot, so they sell out fast, so make sure you go quick. But
Yeah, these are going to be spectacular for anybody that's looking to enjoy the backcountry, whether or not you're running, you're hiking, you're hunting, you're fishing, or if you just like a quick, easy snack that's tasty.
Yeah.
Check these out. Brendan, huge thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And we are back with more Wild Talk. Let's talk about how someone, this can be a fun part. How can someone identify a Billy versus a nanny? Let's get right into that.
It's taken me a while to learn this, and it's mainly from field experience and kind of just through hard knocks and learning without necessarily a mentor. So now there's a lot of literature. You can go online, the Goat Alliance. We have a great video on identification. There's been a lot of courses out there. I will say this, it's great to see a lot of jurisdictions putting in mandatory training. Idaho's one of them. Montana, I did a course a couple years ago with them. Just passed in the state of Alaska now. That's going to be mandatory. This just went through this year for goat identification. So there's more resources out there to really assist, and of course, going with somebody who's hunted goats, is having a mentor is
Right.
top notch. It's like that's important if you can kind of connect with somebody. So let's get into kind of the detail here. Looking at, obviously, the main one would be the horn, the other was the body, and then just the characteristics of how they may behave. So looking at the horn structure, probably the easiest is your nannies are going to have your slender, straight up with that hook,
Yeah.
and just not the mass. Typically, your bases are going to be all under 5 inch. They're in 4.5, all under basically the size of an eye socket of the goat per circumference. Yeah, and it just doesn't carry the weight. It gets pretty thin right away. But you can be fooled. There's some interesting nannies that do look like Billies, but just in general. Then you look at the actual structure of the face. It's going to typically not have a big Roman nose, like a Billy's going to have if they're 5 years old and over. Typically a Roman nose. Nanny's going to be a thinner nose. It's going to look a little bit more feminine. Just it's not going to be as blocky as the Billy. But that Roman nose is a big one that always jumps out. The other is typically, especially more closer to the rut, those Billies are going to have the scent glands much more visible behind the horns. But again, nannies have those as well, often not quite as prevalent, but they will have those as well. And then you get into sort of just the body structure itself. Your Billies are going to be much more beefier on the front end. So they're going to have those front shoulders, more of that hump.
Right.
If you look straight on to that animal, there's just going to be more width to that Billy than the nanny. Again, it's difficult it's nice if there's a herd or if there's comparison of in the rut. It's a lot easier because you've got nannies with Billies. It's much easier to see the body size. But if you just see a nanny alone, especially later season with all haired up, its body's going to look like a Billy. It's pretty beefy looking. But generally, yeah, it's just going to be a smaller in body stature. Then you basically go to sort of the characteristics of how they behave. So obviously easiest is urinating.
Right.
So you're going to have more of a squat. It's going to be a squat as far as urination with a nanny, and then with a Billy, it's more of a stretch out to urinate. So and if you're spending enough time, you're going to see that, but not always. But that's just another sort of an easier way to tell. Obviously, in the rut, it's much easier to distinguish because your activities with the mating, it's pretty obvious when you have a Billy. They're the ones that are going to be actively pursuing the ladies. So that's another easy way. The other one that's off season, so say in the earlier season, not during the rut, is going to be just who they're hanging out with. So your nannies are generally going to be in larger groups of 10, 20, 30. And for the most part, you're only going to find young Billies, the kids, the 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and sometimes up to a 3-year-old hanging out with mom still. So typically you're not going to be looking there's not going to be a Billy, a mature one in those groups of nannies and kids. And then your Billies earlier in the season, typically they're either alone or they're in a bachelor group of 2, 3, 4, 5. Typically it's 2 or 3. So they tend to hang out together. So yeah,
There's a lot.
that's just like kind of really quick, kind of going over the basics. We can also dive into a little bit about, okay, how about mature Billy, old Billy versus mature Billy versus a younger Billy.
We'll be right back with more after the break. And we are back with more Wild Talk. Give a couple of tips for identifying a mature one versus a younger one.
The younger Billy, so I've got a photo that I sent that shows two Billies
Yes.
together on a slope, a little bit further distance away, not zoomed right in. If you look at the body of the upper Billy, it's actually a bigger body than the lower Billy. The upper one has. Oh, and the other thing of Nannies and Billies is the Billies typically have the dirty rear end,
Yeah,
because
I'm looking at that right now.
especially in the rut, because they're urinating in their beds, they're trying to
Right,
get all
right.
nice and stinky. It's all part of the process and the ritual. So that's another one. With your Nannies aren't going to have that as much, but I do have a photo of two Nannies, and you have that with a dirty bud as well. So that can happen just because it's been raining out and they're bedded. But generally, yeah, that's another distinguishing feature. More during the rut is that dirty rear end. But if you look at the upper Billy is actually bigger in body than the
Mm-hmm.
lower Billy, and that upper Billy actually doesn't have a Roman nose.
No, definitely not.
It's got a beautiful hide.
Yeah, long hair.
Yep, that's a nice Billy. It's
Oh,
got
yeah.
actually bigger horns as well. It's got more length. It's so that Billy's what I call it's actually 4 and under, which is hard to believe. That's a booner. That's a
Yeah,
Boone Crockett Billy. So
that's a
it's
big
10 and a
guy.
half inch, 4-year-old. That other one is, I guessed it at 12, 13. We saw that one when we were at the base of the mountain. I was looking to harvest that one. It didn't work out. We ended up with the younger one, which had a bigger horn, but it just worked out. It was one of my son's first goats. It was a
Oh,
beauty. So that other goat at the lower down goat is, look at the actual. It looks old. They look like
yes.
they're an old man. It's got really a saddle.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the hide conditions aren't they're not uniform. They're
Nope.
typically in rough condition. It looks like it's a worn down saddle.
Yeah, he's got that divot.
It's got that big divot. They got the sway back. It's like any really old animal. They don't have that. Their frame and structure isn't very uniform. They're sagging more. Uh, so that's what you'll see a lot of times with those old ones, is
Mm-hmm.
they look old. Their eyes don't look. They look like they're droopy. Their eyes are not fully open. The face looks a bit sad. And it's their movements as well. It's really
Right.
obvious. The old ones move really blocky and slow. The younger ones are more like teenagers, like the 4 year
Okay.
old would kind of jump around more. The old one, in they don't have the time of day, they don't have the patience. You'll see them often kind of uh, jab at the younger ones, kick them out of the way. It's like an old guy kind of getting tired of the kids playing around. The kids are horsing,
Mm-hmm.
goofing off. It's just interesting to see that. So visually,
Yeah.
they look old.
Get off my lawn type
Yeah,
thing.
they act old. They look old. Uh, yeah, it's pretty cool to see that. The old ones, you just know
I
it.
love that.
And
I love
and
that.
there's and then they're losing mass as well, so they're
Right.
going to look a little bit smaller, even in body stature.
Yeah, it's not always that big body you're looking for. You're looking for
Exactly.
the old man sort of thing, right? That's kind of cool.
Exactly.
Little
So
things you wouldn't think of. So we're flying through the time here. We're going to continue this conversation with Marvin from the Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance when we come right back with these messages. This episode of Wild Talk is brought to you by Hornady. Accurate, deadly, dependable. Bronc Beer. Great fucking beer. Boomerex Air Guns. Hunt with air. And these fine sponsors. All right, everybody. This is one of my absolute favorite things that I get to do with hosting this show. It's showcasing the amazing work that some of the nonprofits in the outdoor space around Canada, around North America, and around the globe do. So I would like to welcome Jaden from Ducks Unlimited to the show today. Jaden, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure to be here, Steve. Thank you.
So I said Ducks Unlimited, and that is a name that is synonymous with outdoor spaces, amazing on-the-ground habitat work, and just generally conservation in general. So, talk a little bit about what Ducks Unlimited is.
Yeah, you bet. Ducks Unlimited Canada has been around since 1938 in this nation. The first projects occurred in Manitoba. In this region in British Columbia, we've been operating since the late 70s. So basically, our mission is to conserve, restore, and manage wetlands and associated habitats for the benefit of North America's waterfowl. These habitats also benefit other wildlife and people as well. So, yeah, we're basically making sure that wetland habitats can stay on the landscape through any means we can.
Almost 100 years. I didn't know you guys were around that long. I know I spent a lot of time in the backcountry and seen your signs up everywhere, but I didn't realize you guys were around 100 years. That's an impressive footprint. So talk a little bit about some of the amazing projects you guys and gals have had your hands in over that timeline.
Oh, you bet. I'll speak to the ones here in British Columbia. Those are the ones I'm
Sure.
most familiar with. We have hundreds of wetland segments across the province that we've secured alongside some conservation partners, private landowners, working with Indigenous groups and government agencies as well. To provide the wetland habitat for all species, but of course there's no secret. We like ducks here, so
Mhm.
wetlands obviously and ducks go well together. One of our more recent wins here in the Williams Lake office was completing the 148-mile marsh complex project. This is 27 wetland basins, all on private property, that basically just exists for waterfowl habitat. It's a good partnership with agriculture as well, which is very common for us in this region, many regions across the nation, where we're partnering with ag users to obviously provide irrigation water and watering for cattle. But these wetlands obviously benefit the ducks as well. So good, good marriage of two very important land use practices: conservation and ag.
And that's what it's all about. It's about partnerships, building bridges, and making a positive impact on the ground. So, Jaden, as we wrap this up, where can somebody find out more information about ducks?
You bet. Our website is really easy. It's literally ducks.ca, ducks.ca. There's communication pages on there. You can reach out then through the avenues of communication. They'll kind of be sent out to the local people in your area, and then you can reach out to talk about opportunities to obviously recreate on these places or just volunteer opportunities as well. Yeah, they pop up every now and then. So yeah, really easy way to reach out and sort of help out the cause if you'd like.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me today, Jaden, and a huge thanks from all of us for the great work you do.
You bet. Thanks a lot, Steve.
Stream past episodes of Wild Talk at wildtvplus.ca.
And we are back with more Wild Talk. So let's talk about, as we start to wrap this up for the last couple of minutes, there's real world consequences if hunters aren't selective when it comes to their harvest, right? What could come down the pipe? We've seen it with other species.
I mean, we have it in BC. We're really fortunate here. You go to the lower 48. I mean, you're not getting there's no over the counter tags. It's a once in a lifetime draw.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that I took for granted for a lot of years. And I harvested young animals. I've harvested a couple nannies. I had so many goats in my backyard for years that I didn't even you take it for granted. And I think that's something we can't take for granted anymore. The
Right.
populations are going down. The Goat Alliance, we're trying to gather data from all jurisdictions to kind of get where's the latest counts. There's not a lot of dollars spent on mountain goats, so
No.
that's another concern. But we have some open areas in the province, but a lot of it's LEH, which is good. But what we're going to start to see is areas that are closed.
Yeah.
We generally say, I mean, all the regs for the most part, it says mature, nanny, or billy.
Yeah.
Up till 10 years ago, all the Kootenays said any goat, any sex. So you could
Wow.
shoot any goat and it didn't matter, which was always shocking to me.
Yeah. No kidding.
So that's, in the last 10 years that changed. For the first time, what we're seeing in the bow only area is it actually states in the regs male only, which I think came in last year. I'm not sure the consequences if you do take a nanny. I will have to look into that one, but there's been a over harvest
Right.
of nannies in certain areas, and that is one of them. Which what ends up happening is my thinking is that a lot of people are going. It's the hunt is a once in a lifetime. Even say they're guided
Mm-hmm.
or say they're just not into mountain hunting. They've worked hard. It's a very difficult hunt for the most part, and sometimes you just want to come back with something.
Yeah.
You just or you get tricked. But there are times where I think you want some success, and that's what you're seeing a little bit. You're seeing that with goat with sheep as well. Is that that pressure? I think
Yeah.
I think social media is playing a part of all that as well, um, to harvest an animal. But yeah, what you're going to see is you're going to see more closures. I think once we get more population data, which is
Yeah.
always a struggle, there's probably areas that probably shouldn't be being open to hunting even at this point in time, but they just don't have the data.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to see reduced opportunities, and which we're seeing already in many areas for many species around the
Yeah.
province where it was open. Now it's limited entry for bighorn sheep in the
Yeah.
Kootenays.
Region
It's
4. Yep.
limited entry for caribou.
Mm-hmm. 6.
Um, and I think realistically, and I don't know, I at one point they did. If you harvested in Region 7 a sheep years ago, you couldn't harvest one for 3 years. So potentially those kind of restrictions could come in for goats as well. As if you harvest a nanny, maybe you can't hunt goats for 3 years, right? So, which isn't a bad thing. I think that will really make people become more educated and be more
Yeah.
careful when they're selecting their animal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't really have a problem with that, but
Yeah. It's one of those ones they always say once it's gone, right? It's really hard to bring something back once you've lost it. Region 5, for example, here with the moose, right? It used to be a spike fork season, I believe it was 20 years
yep.
ago, and they went to LEH on a temporary basis, and we're
It,
still at LEH, right? We just saw
it
that come in 4 with
yeah,
sheep.
once you lose something, I mean, I'm going to mention grizzly hunting because I've been a passionate bear
Yep,
hunter for
same
most of my
here,
life, and
as
that's
you
no
can see.
longer. You're not going to see it. You're not going to see it. It's tough to get it back ever. It's just,
Absolutely.
and we're going to see that more and more. So I think we have to, as hunters, we need to represent. Uh, you know, we have to represent hunters well, even in the
Yeah,
non-hunting circles. And I'm a big advocate of that. I will
yeah,
talk about hunting at
absolutely.
work. I will talk about it wherever I go, and just the importance of we need to be responsible. I want to kind of lead by example.
And that's what it is,
Yeah.
right? It's leading by example, being our own advocates and saying, hey, you know what? You see it on social media all the time. Hunters are the original conservationists, the ones that care truly about the species and preserving it. We just need to make sure that we're doing it everywhere. So, someone wants to get involved with the Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance or see some cool tips and tricks, where can you direct them to?
Yeah, so our website, www.goldalliance.org, we're on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
So, and that'll kind of lead you to our website. Uh, I get, I love connecting with goat hunters and those that want to be goat hunters. So, you can go on BC Billies on Instagram as well. So,
Yep.
uh, I just love to connect. Come to the shows, come to the sheep shows, whether it be, in Penticton, Reno. We're at those shows with our booths as well. So, just love to connect. And then if you go on our website, we're doing quite a few counts, some in BC, but mainly in the lower 48 as well, as far as getting involved with the Goat Alliance, doing counts, plus any other activities. We're trying to expand much beyond just counts as well.
Love it. So, thanks, Marvin, for joining me tonight. It's been a great chat. Always learn a ton talking to you. We got to do it again. This time we
We
can't keep pushing it off, and I know you're busy and I'm busy, but we got to make time to follow up this fall, hopefully. So
We would like to do that. We can maybe tell a few stories and talk about tips and tricks for like actually like
exactly.
hunting strategies and summer, fall, winter hunts and get
Oh,
into all that.
awesome. Well, thanks again, Marvin, for all that you do. We'll chat soon.
Yep. Take care. You bet.